The next thing on my list is retention. And it was on the list because retention has been kind of a big topic for the last year plus. Once we decided we could actually keep on teaching, then we had to figure out how to retain students to keep teaching. Um, but just this past week, I saw an on-campus email that listed items from Chancellor Harris's first 180 days goals, or opportunities, I think is the way he phrased it. And retention is one of those. And so if there's anything we can do in service learning, and I think just by doing service learning, we are heading toward retention. But if we can do that with open eyes and thinking about how it is that the things that we're already doing are likely to impact student retention, I think then we can make our case to the university that what we're doing is not just super cool, but it also feeds into some of what the chancellor is saying we got to do. Tasha, if you wouldn't mind starting us off.
Well, I'll speak to my English 102 classes because those are the students that we typically think of when we think retention. And I do have a lot of students who are hesitant at first. Of course, they know it's a service learning course when they select to enroll in it. But I feel like once I sort of hold their hand and get them in contact with their community partner and encourage them to, go to that orientation session or whatever the case may be, because it's sort of individualized, and they develop such a sense of confidence throughout their service learning and engagement. And because I really integrate what they're doing in service learning into the coursework, so they maintain a blog, they create podcasts in small groups that focus on the service learning work and community partners. And then their capstone paper for all English 102 courses is a proposal. And one of the reasons I even began using SLICE was because students were trying to propose solutions to gargantuan issues like climate change, rather than the more grassroots issues that I wanted them to focus on. And so I use service learning, and again, I know I'm off track here, but I use service learning as a way to help students see why we do what we do in terms of research. Because they have to write that capstone proposal paper, they identify maybe some issues within their community partnering agency that need solutions. And I've had students create websites or Facebook pages, or create sort of these campaigns to raise awareness around certain community organizations. But they seem to find more authenticity and purpose in what they're doing in the classroom. And that was my goal to begin with, was to help them achieve more academically by giving them that real world experience. And I think it does help with retention. I wish I had the numbers, but Dave, you've inspired me to keep track of that moving forward with my English 102 students who do service learning, just to kind of follow them and see if it does work.
So just as this just clicked in my head. I had a meeting with Jennifer Bland, who's on our call earlier today, about developing research articles around the kinds of cool things that we're doing on campus. And it feels to me like I've read a lot about how service learning impacts retention in terms of statistics, but I don't think that I have read anything that talks about personal stories of students who may have been, in the danger zone, where we think that this person is a target for giving up on college, and maybe something that they've done in their service learning project has said, hey, you know what, I need to stay. I need to not drop this and go just work at Publix full time. But I need to stick this out because this is cool stuff. So that's an invitation to anybody on the call or anybody that you connect with. I'm envisioning, just in the top of my head, if we had 5 vignettes from 5 different units on campus, that would make like a super powerful paper. That'd be a lot of fun. Um, whew, I get excited about stuff. Michelle, how about you? What do you think in terms of retention?
I think it's an amazing tool. I can kind of piggyback off what Tasha's saying a little bit, because a lot of the problems that we have with our students are problems of confidence. So many of them are first gen, and so many of them don't know what they're capable of, or don't have the tools they need for, you know, solving problems and doing all of these more complex things out in the community. And the students that we take and tie into something and allow them to get that hold, it has just made a huge difference. And it really can be something simple that loops them into a group where they feel involved. I had the center intern, our crime analysis student, was here this morning, and she was saying how, you know, before she got involved in this, she was kind of wandering around aimlessly, you know, and she said, I just saw a flyer, and I thought, hey, what's crime analysis, you know? And now we're just working very closely, and we have a mentoring relationship. And so I think getting the opportunities out there is good, but a lot of our students really do lack the confidence, and I think they need somebody like Tasha saying, hey, you're capable of doing this, you know. And, you know, if we can get them into the course and then help them realize that, that makes all the difference. But I had never thought about the connection before until Tasha was talking about kind of scaling problems also. And it's interesting that you bring that up, because one of the things that we're trying to do with the Crime Analysis Center is increase our problem-solving skills in our area, independent problem solving. So, you know, we get students who come to Upstate, and they have a simple question that they could look on the syllabus or Google or whatever, and they don't. Their direct line of thought is, ask the professor, you know. And so that is something that we work on a lot in the crime analysis classes. I force them to find their own information every time they can, and we've realized there's really a benefit to starting this earlier and getting people the tools. So yesterday we went and did a trial run at a school, a public school, with fourth grade classes with a problem-solving lesson. And Tasha just reminded me of this because, you know, I went through an example, and I talked to them about how, hey, there are really just a few steps we use when we're solving big crime problems, and those steps can be used for all sorts of problems. So we talked through an example, and then I was having the students come up with their own. And again, the idea is something that we can do something about, right? And so we had the same problem. Students were saying, I realized I need more guidance on this step. They're saying, the oceans of the world are polluted, you know. Yes, that's a terrible problem, but, you know, again, here are some criteria. Can we do anything about it? Hey, maybe you can't fix the whole oceans, but maybe there is a lake behind your neighborhood like ours, and there's a lot of trash there, and maybe you can collect more information about why there's trash there and develop some ideas about that. So I would just second that two of our problems that we have that service learning helps tie students in with is for them to have enough confidence to know that they can get out there and affect the community and work in agencies. And then for them also to be realistic. And I think it's important that we realize that there's nothing wrong with trying to help in your own community. You don't have to aim at the whole world. If everyone helped in their own community, the whole thing would be covered, you know. And I think there's this idea, I need to go change the world, you know. Well, change your world. And by doing these classes, I think the students grasp that a little more, you know. And so, at least in my experience so far, they are taking those lessons out, and most of them are staying in this area and working in the field with that new knowledge. And so I think, I don't have numbers either, but now I'm thinking, why don't I have numbers? I collect numbers for everything. But I mean, I think it has to be helping, because I'm thinking through students that I work with, and to have those skills that they don't get from a book, for them to have gone out there and had those experiences really change things for them. So that has to add up, right?
Now, I don't have this on my notes, but I think that another of Chancellor Harris's opportunities is to work college to career. And I do know that that's our QEP for this session, is emphasizing the careerness. That absolutely could have been, maybe should have been one of our topics that I guide you to. Ginny, how about what are you thinking about retention in place?
Yeah, so most of the students who I have in service learning, so they're upper level biology majors, and a good percent of our biology majors are pre-health of some sort. So we have a good number of pre-med, pre-dental, pre-vet, and the ones that aren't pre-health, a lot of them still want to go into grad school. So maybe it's for research or ecology or something. So for almost everything I just named, you have to have some type of community work. So if you want to go to med school and you volunteered at the local STD clinic, that's huge, right? So I think there's a big impact for retention for our students, because this is not just a course assignment, but it goes in on their applications, on their personal statements they have to write when they write for these schools. So it's really impactful, I think, because it makes a difference. And they also just personally see the difference that it makes. So I talked earlier about the project that was my favorite project of going into the schools, and that's kind of how I started. But over the last several years, kind of, I guess about maybe 1 year before COVID started, I transitioned into letting my students pick their own projects. And so basically they had to first come up with, here's a microbiology or public health issue in our community. So maybe it was low vaccine rates, maybe it was STDs in South Carolina are one of the highest rates in the country, maybe it was, those type of things, and they picked something. They had to do some research on the science behind it, so it really brought in the material, and then they had to do something about it. So it kind of piggybacks on what the others have said of finding something, a small problem in your community, right? We're not trying to cure STDs in the world, but maybe the colleges around Spartanburg have high STD rates, and education is key, or free testing, letting students know where they can go get free testing. So I think students identified a problem like that, and they came up with a solution. And I found that when students were picking their own problem, they really enjoyed it, because they seemed to be more motivated because it was something they picked and they wanted to help fix. And then again, for retention purposes, it not only helps them feel involved, but it helped them beyond just retention at Upstate, and it helped them get to their next step, whether it was med school or grad school or a lab job, whatever it was. So I think it helps retention for our science students, but also even more so, it helps prepare them and give them more for what they plan to do after they graduate.